Hello, today is Tuesday, September 17th, and we're here with another episode of the news.
There's something weird in the air, and none of us can breathe.
I don't think it's what's in the air. I think it's what's not in the air, which is
Moisture?
a drop of moisture.
There's no moisture, and it's also extremely hot out. So I guess it's not as humid, which is an improvement for this area of the country, but
But it's so not humid that it's uncomfortable.
yeah.
As they say, it's a dry heat. Speaking of heat, guess who's getting some heat? It's the big tech companies. And they're feeling it. How do we know that they're feeling it? It's not what they say. No, it's what they're doing. What they're begging for, which seems counterintuitive, right?
51 tech CEOs sent an open letter to Congress asking for a federal data privacy law. Like, without even getting into what the article's about, let's just imagine for a second what sort of twisted and nefarious purpose there might be in making such a request.
Well, I think the headline should read that 51 tech CEOs sent an open letter to Congress asking for their lobbyists to write a data privacy law.
I didn't even get like one paragraph into the article, and I was like, this is just so they can like write fake legislation for this, right? Like that's what that really is, and yes, that's probably what they're asking for.
Now, their argument is we're getting this patchwork of laws, meaning California has our balls in a vice. We need to supersede that. We need an Ajit pie just for us, just for the big tech companies, not to do necessarily with communication.
A man of the people,
I
but
like,
not really a man of the people.
I like how all of these companies are like, look, we need nth degree surveillance on all of our customers or we can't do business. Like, it doesn't even enter into their mind to just not collect the data. Like, you don't need that much data to do business with somebody. Remember when somebody could just walk into a store and buy stuff with cash?
The Dark Ages?
It's unheard of now.
Don't you know that cash is only used by terrorists?
So it would seem.
So, yeah, all the big companies, and they collectively are feeling the heat, and individually, they're at different levels of siege, I guess you could say. And maybe at the top of the list is poor little Amazon.
Poor little Amazon.
Because the president hates it. And so you can go after it without worrying about any angry tweets coming against you.
Amazon is probed by U.S. antitrust officials over the Amazon marketplace. The FTC is looking into this, so I expect a toothless response.
Well, there'll be a fine of somewhere around $200 million, which to Amazon is like, their snack budget.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is like the negotiator for Amazon just comes to the FTC and it's like, look, whatever you guys are looking into, I'm going to save you guys a whole bunch of money. Don't even bother looking into it. We'll just cut you a check right now for $250 million.
We're going to sign you guys up to what we call fine payment prime. All right? You're going to get your fine payments in under 24 hours. Drone delivered in a duffel bag and unmarked bills.
Man, if that's all the FTC wants, I mean, why not just streamline it?
So specifically what they're going after here, though, is the destruction of small business. So they're going to the Amazon sellers, and they're saying, okay, explain to us what Amazon has said to you about, like, you have to follow our rules or you'll be destroyed. Or do you think there's real competition? Because Amazon kind of says, hey, look at Walmart and eBay. We have real competition. And the FTC's like, doubt. So they're asking the sellers, do you believe that you have an alternative, or do you believe that if you don't play ball, you're out and you're done?
Our competition, Amazon's competition on eBay is used toothbrushes.
There was some of the interviews were listed here. Are people who had been interviewed, and they were like, yeah, I can't remember. One of the guys said that like if he hadn't advertised with Amazon, like his products were being delisted or moved further down, and it was like, oh.
Oh yeah, they got in trouble for that. This is something different.
But the guy mentioned it in the article who was interviewed for this sort of thing.
The old Google gambit.
Yeah.
They learn from each other. Can't say that they don't. Also up on the investigative block is Apple. And it's for something that I'd never thought the government would actually do anything about. And maybe they still won't, but it's nice to see something, I guess.
This makes a lot more sense now. Motherboard's reporting Congress is investigating Apple's repair monopoly. Part of the antitrust investigation centers on Apple's restrictions on third-party repairs. Now, remember, what was it last week that we reported on? Apple all of a sudden was like, look, we're going to sell our repair parts. There's this magical thing happening. And almost like immediately, like somebody got a call from somebody in Congress and was like, we're going to investigate you. And they're like, oh, I'm so glad you called. We had this thing in motion for months. And it's like,
They also made a very unexpected announcement at the Apple event relating to warranty, which we'll talk about in the next episode in the business
There's
section.
a lot of Apple news this week.
But all related, I'm sure.
yeah.
All very big decisions that were made very quickly based on this probe.
This isn't the first time that Apple has made a huge decision like this, seemingly just for outside forces. They're like, we're not going to do this unless outside forces force our hand, but we're going to be ready to do it immediately, like as if we've been preparing for months to do the right thing anyway, but we're only going to do the right thing if absolutely cornered into doing the right thing. It's a weird
Right.
MO.
Machiavelli would be fully erect with that plan. It's kind of, it's brilliant. It's evil, but it's brilliant. And finally, perhaps the most obvious reason that this letter was sent saying, hey, you need to do something about these stupid states is the news about Google, who has so many little red dots all over them that they're actually starting to sweat.
Nearly every state is launching an antitrust investigation of Google. Attorneys general from 50 states, as well as Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C., oh man, have announced their plan to launch an antitrust investigation focused on Google. All 50 states?
Well, there's two.
Yeah, but
California.
Well, it says 50 states, but then it leaves out.
That's like all of them.
The two that didn't were California and Alabama. And I was like, ooh, Alabama taking the heat for Kentucky again.
Yeah. Yeah, Alabama. I don't know what Alabama's thinking, but it can't be, if we're not counting Puerto Rico and D.C., it can't be 50 states if you leave two out, right? I mean,
I guess 50 attorneys general, so 48 plus, that's a little bit of a typo.
Yeah, I
that's-
don't.
oh, okay, yeah.
It's strange, but
BuzzFeed.
Either
What's
way.
BuzzFeed?
Yeah. I really I want to think that these attorneys general have the tools to look at this and actually think about the antitrust aspects of this, but I think they just want the money.
Well, I imagine about,
they saw what the European Union's doing. And they're like, I want a piece of that.
I'd say around 40 of them just, somebody called them up and was like, hey, we're going to go and get money from Google. And they're like, yeah, put me on that list. So.
Yeah, I mean, and I hate to be that cynical. I mean, normally, we're pretty cynical on this, but it seems very thinly veiled.
This is the same argument as Amazon. Basically, it's the ads and the search, the way all that works, the way you have to pay to play. And they're saying that, hey, when I search for something, I shouldn't have to be lost in this mess of ads and be confused about what the actual top result is and blah, blah, blah. It's the same
Google's
old
just
argument.
good at selling ads and search. Are you going to find them for that?
Yeah.
They're going to try.
Literally are. All right. In other Google news, we know that Google kind of switched to a very social justice-y kind of internal policy. And what they figured out from that is that those people love to complain. They really, really love to complain. So we had a litany from the pregnant women to the Chinese sympathizers to the Republicans to the Democrats. Everybody was like, Google discriminates. And Google said, hey, why don't we just stop talking about politics? Why don't you just do your work, peons? And turns out that's not allowed.
Now, this is a Wall Street Journal article, so I'm surprised it's not paywalled, but the
It
headline...
was for me.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, the headline says, the government has ordered Google to let employees speak out. So this is, it's not, Google is not allowed to, the labor board says that Google is not allowed to interfere with those kinds of things.
Political, which in the modern day, everything is political, right?
Yeah.
So it covers any kind of bitching. This has to do with they have all these internal message boards and stuff like that, and they have those weekly meetings or whatever, and you have to be able to voice whatever your opinion is in those meetings. So, and no retaliation, which that one guy, Demore, was that his name?
Yeah.
He's probably like,
They settled.
we're gonna do this now.
I think his case is probably not as strong as some of the other ones that we've covered. There were a couple people that, the pregnancy one, and there was the other person that was trying to organize They were trying to organize some kind of something internally, and they were dismissed for nebulous reasons. I think they've probably got a better case.
Meanwhile, overseas, the EU are old hands at taking little chunks out of big tech companies. They're really good at just extracting money whenever they want it. And doesn't look like it's going to stop. Traditionally, they've used Ireland. Google has used Ireland as a shield to hold up against all the other countries. But France says, no, that's not going to work anymore.
Google is going to pay $1 billion to France to settle a fiscal fraud probe. And it is totally just the tax haven, tax shelter thing. So this is really not a fine so much as what Google or what France figured that Google owed in back taxes for a number of years.
The Irish gambit is not going to work. Sorry.
The EU member states, that actually would be a really good strategy that Google could use to turn the EU in on itself. It's like if Google is to be taxed on profits made from activity originating from a particular country's citizens, then that profit probably is in proportion to the strength of that country's economy and some other factors. And so Google could just do it that way. And then if Google proposed that, I bet the EU member states would just turn on themselves.
Again, Machiavelli would be proud of that. Yes. Make our enemies fight one another. Switching over to some Huawei news, we haven't heard too much about Huawei in the recent past. I mean, we've heard a lot about them, but it's been kind of cooled down.
We've had like one story a week, but it's not like doom and gloom. It's just little things.
So the newest Huawei news has to do with the old, someone comes over here from China for intellectual reasons and steals some technology story. A tale as old as time. And it's happened again, this time from Texas.
Reuters actually has a fairly detailed article. The headline is U.S. charges Chinese professor in the latest shot at Huawei. The weird thing about this case, the Chinese professor is a visiting professor in Texas, but this court case is happening in New York with the other Huawei case. So the professor's going to have to go to New York to deal with this. But basically, as a professor, he reached out to several different technology companies, and this is not the first time this happened. The first time this happened was with another company called Connex, or CNEX, and he basically said, "Hey, I'm a professor. I want to use your technology for a project. Can you do that?" And being a company, you're like, "Yeah, that sounds great. Here's our technology." And then he phoned up his friends at Huawei and was like, "Here, look at this awesome technology." Yeah, allegedly.
Allegedly.
Phoned up his friends at no, well, actually, that's the first case. Where I don't think that's I think they just settled. But weirdly, it was like Huawei and Connex, and they didn't really involve the professor. And so then the professor did it again, and now the feds are like, whoa, wait, what? That's how that works?
That's balls of steel right there.
Yeah.
Or that's the Communist Party abducting one of his grandchildren. Who knows?
They would never do that.
Level 1, come for the tech stories, stay for the dark humor.
Speaking of Huawei, they are under the gun from the U.S. government, and it really is hurting their bottom line. I mean, they're limping along, but they can't use the App Store, and they sell Android phones. Think about that. That's crippling. So they're trying to think of new ways, like, okay, how can we deal with this? And they have a new proposal, which sounds kind of good at first, but as BBC points out, might not really solve the problem.
Huawei chief offers to share 5G know-how for a fee. It's like Huawei showed up. It's like looking around at the rest of the world, and companies like, hey, you guys are having trouble rolling out your next-gen wireless network. Guess what we at Huawei have already figured out? Would you like some help?
For a fee.
So they want to license everything with the agreement that, hey, we're going to license this to you. If you want to go through it and look for the Chinese government and change it, that's totally fine. You can totally do that. But the argument that the BBC points out is like, well, yeah, but if any of that data goes back through Huawei in any way, how can we be sure that the Chinese government doesn't get a copy of it?
I would also point to the gas line explosion that was in Russia. It's like some gas pipeline valve control software company in the 70s supplied control software to Russia, and they got to look at it and they couldn't figure out what the problem was, and it caused one of the largest non-nuclear explosions in history because gas pipelines.
Remember LinkedIn?
Unfortunately.
LinkedIn was angry. And why were they angry? Because they put public data on a website, and someone had the audacity of making a copy of it. And they said that that's illegal. And it went to court, and it
We
went
reported
to
on that.
appeals courts, and it's been going and going and going.
Like 4 years.
Yeah, just forever. But finally, it's maybe settled.
Court rules that scraping public website data is not hacking. And the important distinction here is even in the website's terms of service, it says no. Aaron Schwartz would be like freaking out right now. Yeah. Because, yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like if you put up a billboard and
No pictures of this billboard.
yeah, no pictures, no
Not
paintings. You can't copy what the words are on it and show anybody else, which is stupid.
Can somebody make sure the federal attorneys general get a copy of this ruling? Because
Well, that's the thing. They point out that this Computer Fraud and Abuse Act will be very heavily affected by this decision if it stands.
yeah,
Because there's a lot of things that the government can nab you for, and it's like, that's hacking. But no, it's not. It's copying.
I mean, like downloading a bunch of academic journals just because the terms of service say don't do that. That it's not actually it's actually okay.
Well, that's copyright. That's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
They're not going to overturn that. Sorry. Bill de Blasio, the despotic leader of New York, wants to be president. And he's got some ideas about things that he wants to do when he's president. And one of them is insane.
Presidential hopeful Bill de Blasio wants a tax on robots. I'll save you the trouble of reading this article. The tax on robots is going to be equivalent to 5 years worth of payroll taxes when they roll out robots to replace a human being. The more I read of what Bill de Blasio said, the more I fear for the future of humanity.
Oh.
You knocked over a water bottle.
I knocked over my water bottle.
A level 1 water bottle from the store at store.level1
I needed sugar and caffeine today, so we're having the Coke.
You hid your water shamefully because you had the choice.
I did.
You could have been a hydro homie, although that's not the real word.
No, it's hydro homies.
No, it's not.
We're both rocking the Verdes.
So, spying, international spying, it's a thing that happens. It's kind of something that all the countries do, but they kind of ignore
They pretend they don't.
for diplomacy reasons. But Trump has never been a man to ignore it. He gets really upset when he gets spied upon, which is why this is a little peculiar, because he didn't get upset at all, at least publicly.
Israel allegedly installed Stingray devices around D.C. to spy on President Trump. I would also remember the conspiracy story about Jeff Bezos and his private investigator, and all. That's all I could think about while I was reading this. So, I think actually we reported on news like there are a bunch of people that are just on like the IT underground thing in DC, and there were a couple stories like a year ago about all these mysterious Stingray towers all around DC, and it was like, what's going on with this? I don't know. We'll probably read more about it.
But we didn't know who it was.
Yeah, had no idea. Well, now we know.
Now, this is not official, but Gizmodo claims that they have a lot of sources, insiders, who are like, yeah, this is pretty much definitely Israel. But no one talks about that.
That's scary.
I don't know.
That's two data points that point to the same thing. Krista doesn't care.
Now, if
So I didn't mean to yawn. I'm just so tired.
if this had been China or Russia, do you think they would have said something?
Yeah, I think they'd be freaking out.
No, we're best friends with them.
No, like it's like they're hacking our voting machines through the Stingray tower. Like, how do you even
That's
buy
what
that?
best friends do.
Like, do you bring it on a boat? How did that get through the?
Do you, if it's Saudi Arabia, do you think we would have said something?
Well, it's a tough one.
You know, our state just joined the list of states where you cannot boycott Israel.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Red state governors. Gotta love them. Oh, man, the vapors.
Oh,
They are an outspoken bunch. Now, we have this vaping epidemic going on in the country, and the headlines are just going crazy. I mean, what the number's up to like, what, 600?
Yeah. I vaped formaldehyde and got sick. Down with vaping.
And,
I think it was 500 at least in this article.
but 500 out of how many? This is a vanishingly small percentage
Listen,
of
it's
vapors.
important that we make this seem worse than it is, right?
I'm sure that there are over 20,000 vapors in the local university scene.
Yeah, just like the entire student body. Well, vaping it's getting a bad rap. The mainstream media has decided that vaping is evil, and they are doubling down on those headlines. And it seems like the powers that be see blood in the water, and so they've come out to attack the big fish.
Juul illegally marketed e-cigarettes, the FDA says. Now, before you post the angry comments there, I'm not saying that. That's what the FDA said, according to the New York Times.
Oh, they're already talking.
The FDA. It's the FDA.
They paused the video 2 minutes ago.
Yeah.
No. So, yeah, Juul was marketing it to kids. It turns out this is not a repeat of 1952, where they were using...
No, this was different.
Yeah.
They marked it as because they said that they were safer than regular cigarettes.
They used the word switch, right? And so the argument here is switch is not the same as quit. You can tell people to quit smoking, but you can't tell them to switch over to your nicotine product as a substitute for safer than smoking, because it's not been proven by the FDA that vaping is safer than smoking. I mean, vaping has killed 500 people. We can prove it. How many can we prove that cigarettes have killed 500 people?
I think we can.
Maybe.
I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe 5 million, maybe 50 million.
Listen, this is Juul's much bigger fish. Oh, jeez, got so many ads.
Well, I mean, Juul's not a bigger fish, but
No,
I think Philip Morris has all those lobbyists.
I think we truly are entering the world of 1984 when logical conclusions are outlined. It's like, if A, then B. It's like, no, you must not. Deductive reasoning is not allowed.
That's a logical jump. We're better than that. California, they're at the forefront of the big anti-tech push, or I guess you could say the pro-tech worker push. Depends on glass half empty kind of thing. But when it comes to app-based companies, and when we are talking about app-based companies, we're talking about Uber and all the food delivery companies and anything where you pay through your phone, and it's like the gig economy. California's very serious about that, and they've made a landmark decision.
California bill makes app-based companies treat workers as employees. So if your Uber driver is using the Uber app, they're an Uber employee. This
I was
seems like
surprised.
it seems like it'd be problematic for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, it's problematic because some of these companies are going to go away.
Yeah.
They can't afford to do business like this.
Well, what about like plumbers? There was I had a plumber out a few months ago, and they did everything through like their phone and an iPad. So like they had an app and they signed up for the app, and it was all them. Like they got a lead online and they filled it out and they did everything. But it was like they were like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this job and I'm going to talk to you and I'm going to estimate it. I'm going to do all this stuff, and it was through an app. But the dude was definitely, a sole proprietor of his own plumbing shop business. It seems like in that scenario,
Did you find
that doesn't
them
count.
through the app though?
Yeah,
Oh.
well,
Then that-
online.
But that doesn't matter because he's paying his employees. He's using the app. The business is using the app rather than contractors, right?
I don't know. It seems
Now,
ambiguous.
if you were in a situation where you were an app company and you did the contracting with individual plumbers
Oh, so like if you pay the app,
to
Yeah.
do the work, yeah, I think that would.
I understand that.
I mean,
I'm paying the plumber directly.
It's a weird. I'm sure the bill, I'm sure it's like 5 million pages that lays all that out. But I think that would be the distinction, right?
That's yeah. I mean, it should be, but the way that this reads makes it sound like anybody receiving money through an app is like an employee automatically. It's like,
That doesn't sound right.
It does. Yeah. Where do you draw the line? I don't know. I'm sure that'll be tested very soon, and we'll find out. And that's another one of those reasons that that's the patchwork of state laws that the big tech companies are not fans of. They do not want it. And speaking of state laws, Maine is kind of a thorn in the paw of the FCC and the big phone companies and cable companies. And they're another, like a mini California, a very mini California. And so they came up with this rule that says you're not allowed. If you want one TV channel, you should be able to buy one TV channel. If all you want is Better Homes and Gardens, that's all you watch all day long, you should be able to just get that one channel.
It's going to cost you 38 cents.
And the big telecommunications companies, not fans.
Comcast is suing Maine to stop a local law, requiring the sale of individual TV channels. Industry suit says Maine law violates their First Amendment and Communications Act. Wow.
So the First Amendment is apparently, it's your freedom of speech to decide how to package your TV channels. I guess that kind of makes sense. I mean, in a way, you're forcing them to sell a certain kind of product a certain kind of way.
Certainly with the Sinclair broadcasting, like where everybody was saying in unison, that's somebody's First Amendment.
The problem here, as is always the problem with the big telecommunication companies, is that the relationship between them and the regulators is so incestuous that regulation seems wrong on the surface. It seems like, what, you're going to tell me that I have to sell channels in a certain way? Isn't this my business? But at the same time, they choke out all competition. Mm-hmm. So we're forced to live with them.
We got this janky public access mechanism, and it's just no one would do that. Like the people that are on public access literally probably should be on some kind of medication for their mental health.
Well, I'm talking about just, like look at Netflix, for example, and how hard they went after Netflix to try and get all those, concessions about the data and stuff like that. So when a competitor comes in, they use their might and their lobbying power to destroy it. So maybe we do have to regulate them. It's such a weird situation.
It is very strange.
But I think per channel makes sense as a consumer.
Yeah.
I think Maine could probably put this in their franchising agreement, which the article mentions that it's like as part of agreeing to exclusive franchise rights, you have to allow people to buy your channels as a one-off. That's a business deal. That probably would stand up.
And if it didn't, you'd get them out of your state.
Yeah.
But see, the lawmakers don't want that because that hurts them.
Because they don't get the donations?
Yeah.
That is scary.
And yet, unsurprising, as is every one of these stories.
It seems crazy that this was 2 years ago. Or no, it wasn't 2 years ago. How long ago was this?
It's been a while.
It has been a while.
Yeah, it was a while.
It was the swatting case where some idiots were playing Call of Duty and one of them said, "What's your address? I'm going to come and kill you or kick your ass or whatever." He said, "Oh, no, you won't. Here's my address." But he gave the wrong address, a fake address, except it was real. And when the cops showed up, they killed the unsuspecting people at that address, or one of them. So there were 3 people involved. They already convicted and sentenced the swatter, but the guy that gave the address, his case is just now wrapped up.
Ohio gamer sentenced to 15 months in prison for fatal swatting case. That seems excessive. The reason that his sentence was so harsh was because apparently at first he was going to try to cover it up, or he wasn't, like they were kind of in on it together at first or something.
The real question I had while reading this article was, what happened to the cops?
No.
Like,
2-week vacation.
yeah, who busted down a door and killed someone.
No, they didn't even have to bust down the door. The guy came out and was like, "What's happening?" And of course, they were shining 15 million watt lights in his eyes and he couldn't see. And I think they thought he had a gun or something, which would have been his right. It's his house. But yeah, there is a third guy. I'm not sure exactly what happened to him, who was even less involved in this whole thing. But yeah, it does seem extreme because this guy, in a lot of ways, was also a victim.
Yeah. Well, was this a form of self-defense, like giving a fake address?
Well, I mean, you could have just not engaged. There's definitely that argument.
Or is that 1v1 me?
And I think this does sort of send a message. It's like, hey, if someone asks for your address online to come and kill you, don't respond.
Yeah. But that's not good for clickbait.
We talked about the EU and how they love just taking big chunks out of the tech companies. Big, delicious chunks. The choicest cuts. And so they have the GDPR and they have all these people who are in charge of these things. And they had this woman who was just a bulldog when it came to going after the tech companies. And now some restructuring happened in the EU, and they were like, finally, we'll get rid of her. But wait.
EU reappoints the top antitrust cop who led the crackdown on tech giants. So, like, if you really enjoyed the Schadenfreude of all of the stories last year where Google got fined, $1 billion here and $1 billion there, I'm pretty sure that's going to be happening again.
The sequel.
Margrethe Vestager.
She's back.
It's probably Margaret, right? It's just an accent that you don't actually read.
Who cares?
She's going to be its antitrust chief for the newly restructured, what is it? It was the anti-competitive something or other. It's like the committee for the anti-competitive stuff. Not just Google, but all the technology stuff.
The tech vampires. Also out of the EU, or the UK in particular, which is still in the EU. Gosh, how long has it been now? And they have taken a hard stance on one of the most crippling, evil things in our world. Of all the problems that we have in this world, I'm so glad that our lawmakers are focusing on this, because it is a scourge.
Loot boxes in games are gambling and should be banned for kids, say UK MPs. Wow, they're a couple of years late here. Are things running really that slow in the UK? Like, has everything just ground to a halt that...
They do have other problems.
Or they just, they just need a slam dunk, like, look how hard I am on...
I mean, this is old news. I feel like this is related to Krista's handmade pottery mug.
It says, get wrecked, scrub.
I agree with them.
For a bachelorette.
I don't think they go far enough. I think we should ban children from gaming.
Children are not allowed on the internet.
This is one of the things that I agree with the Chinese government on. Keep the kids off the gaming. That's what we need to do.
You don't even play multiplayer games that often. Why does that bother you?
I just don't like kids.
They're better at me than this game.
That does drive me crazy.
Their young reflexes.
Yeah. Speaking of China, it's no secret that China is very specific about what you can say publicly. And they don't pretend otherwise. They say, listen, watch what you say. And if you say bad things about the Communist Party, you will disappear. And maybe your family will disappear. So don't do it. But the thing is, there's a lot of people in China, right? Billions of people.
At least 12 people.
And how do you make sure that all those people say the right thing? It's a daunting task, but they've got a new tool in their toolbox.
China's internet regulator orders online AI algorithms to promote mainstream values. Systems should direct users to approve material on subjects like Xi Jinping thought, or which showcase the country's economic and social development. Cyberspace Administration of China says. Wow, Cyberspace Administration of China, that's like Space Force.
I like that
cyberspace.
They put the word thought after Xi Jinping. Like, literally the thought police.
The unironic thought police, okay?
And this is in the press release. So, yeah, they're saying that when it comes to all these topics, the AI should be very, very careful about what it returns when you search for one of these things.
Are there any Eastern philosophers like Aldous Huxley or any of those? Like, is there a Chinese language equivalent of 1984? Maybe it just doesn't translate well.
I'm sure every copy of that has been burned.
Well, what about like Huxley with his stuff? Like, was there a Chinese Huxley?
I mean, considering Animal Farm, you got to think that Orwell is just persona non grata in China, right?
Yeah, there's no way those books made it over there safely.
So.
Wow, our Google ads are doing so well in China. I don't
Dragonfly.
But see, you bring up a good point. Will Google play ball with that? Because
absolutely they will, because they want money. They don't care.
They've been trying.
Yeah.
But their internal people are going to bitch and moan on the message board about that a lot. They're not allowed to silence them anymore.
There's like 3 people inside of Google who are right now hatching a scheme to be like, how can we get this wing of the company to work on product X for China, but make it so that they have no idea that it's for China.
Yeah, you tell them it's to spread more telecommunication infrastructure in Africa, and then they feel so good about it but really they're working on Chinese technology.
Yeah,
that's how you do that. So moving on to the security section. Now this first one I almost cut because it is you talk about a nothing burger. This is the biggest nothing burger there could be. But I figured let's just shame Gizmodo for this stupid headline. It's ridiculous.
Loophole that lets people share your private Instagram pics and stories isn't a hack, but still, heads up. So it's not just Instagram, it's also Facebook. Basically, if you look at something that somebody has shared privately and you copy the URL for that media, their content delivery network doesn't do any kind of access checking. And so if you have the URL, you can get to the image.
So they actually went to try to get a statement from these various companies. And you can tell that they got to a software engineer at some point, and they're like, what?
That's designed that way.
Are you stupid? What if I took a picture of the screen? How is that different? What if I took a screenshot? These are pictures. How am I supposed to serve it to you? It's a picture. So yeah, don't
take pictures of stuff you don't want all over the internet.
Yeah, but don't labor under the idea that you can put anything on the internet and keep it away from a large audience. You cannot
safe
do
from
that.
us.
Every time you see the picture, you are not safe from the picture being like. Every time somebody looks at the picture, it's not doing an access check. How about that?
And it would be stupid to do it because, again, print screen exists.
Yeah.
The snipping tool exists. Ridiculous.
In the past, Facebook even used predictable URLs for these things. So.
Now they did point out that you could never guess the hash.
So they got that part right, at least.
No. YouTube took a lot of heat about their child programming because it turns out there were child predators who enjoyed watching and commenting on videos about children. Which, if I'm a child predator, I'm going to try to put myself in that mindset. Wouldn't I be trying to hide that? Why would I comment on that? Is it like, am I so overwhelmed by emotion?
I'm thinking about the scenario where, like, the Mr. Rogers of the 21st century is commenting on these things and actually giving these kids genuine encouragement.
There weren't those kind of comments.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's an adult mentor. That's
pretty obvious.
an adult predator.
Although if you took a lot of Mr. Rogers quotes out of context and
Yeah.
put them on YouTube videos,
Yeah.
it probably would be really disturbing.
There should be a YouTube channel that's Mr. Rogers out of context.
Won't you be
because-
my neighbor?
Yeah.
Anyway, YouTube, in response to that, made all kinds of promises, but CNET is following up.
YouTube vowed to disable comments on videos with young kids. It hasn't. That's pretty much the article.
That's it.
So CNET, they went and they searched for like various terms. One I remember was tumbling, so you can imagine it's like little girls in tight clothing doing
There goes the
acrobatics.
monetization.
And they looked, and sure enough, the comments were there. And so they made a big list and they sent it over, and YouTube was like, yeah, we'll deal with this later. And then they followed up. They had done half of them. They disabled comments on half of them.
I think that the reason for this is that the AI is very bad at this kind of thing. Google would have us believe that they could just be like, all right, AI, do this on this kind of video. But the reality is if they did that, half of the videos would be broken.
I was going to say, I don't know that Google or YouTube would have us believe that. I think that news organizations try to get that narrative pushed, but it's like, that's just impossible. Like,
But also, think about trying to build that AI. Because
Yeah.
the AI, there's no way that it can ever really understand the darkness of the human psyche. If you're an AI and you look at a wholesome video with jaunty music of young girls doing acrobatics, how is that bad, right? Why would you need to do anything about that? But humanity is terrible. And so, yes, you actually do have to do something.
well, I figured the only criteria it would be looking for would be age, but even that is not, because you can look older than your age. Like,
But also some of those, like acrobatic gymnastic girls are like they exercise so hard they stop growing.
yeah.
So like, how would you tell the Olympic ones from the preteen ones? It's a tough situation. Really, I mean, I think, I guess as a parent, you can't do it. Like if you take your kid to a tumbling competition and they put that on YouTube, that would be illegal, right?
All the parents have to sign off on that.
So as a parent, just don't make videos of your children. It's not safe. I know that's sad, but That's the reality.
Or at least upload privately and hope that you don't have any terrible people that are going to publish.
What did we just cover on Instagram?
Yeah.
Twitter has a whole building full of people who are marketers. And they're on that marketing mindset, and they're all about how to psychologically manipulate you and make you constantly check their service.
Who does that here in this office?
And they have some clever ideas, which might be illegal.
Twitter's stenciled San Francisco street tweets. Hashtag illegal, hashtag graffiti. City says. This article's kind of a nothing burger because this is supposed to be chalk stencils with tweets on them. They're supposed to, it's like, look, Twitter is about things happening in life and not the terribleness of humanity. That's why they're doing these. It was supposed to be chalk on a sidewalk, which is supposed to be okay in some scenarios. But the Art Council in San Francisco was not consulted. And the San Francisco Street Authority said that nobody's got a permit for this. And if they see it, Twitter's going to be fine. But they haven't seen anything yet. A little bit of a nothing burger.
Well, I don't think they could find them. What they said they were going to do is clean it and send them the bill. It's like 30 seconds with a power washer.
Not even a power wash, just a hose.
A good rain.
Yeah.
It's chalk.
My favorite, they listed these. I can't scroll down because I just removed the ad blocker info so you can see the picture here, and it still didn't work very well. I can't scroll it. But my favorite one was Twitter is garbage and I'm a raccoon. So yeah, not allowed to do that. Not a bad idea though.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was really that damaging. What if they put Trump's tweets on the streets?
Oh, Lord help us.
That would cause a riot.
People
probably.
would literally be just like
punching each other.
Aren't they trying to make Twitter seem more positive? I don't think that would do anything for anybody.
Somebody should do that. You should do that in your hometown and see what happens. That's probably a crime. Don't do that. And our final story is a great one. So this Devin Nunes fellow, he is part of, was it Homeland Security or something like that? It's part of one of the big, like security FBI type situations. And there are Twitter accounts that pretend to be one of his cows, because he's a farmer, and his mom. And they say things that are very mean about Devin Nunes. So, as a politician, he just takes whatever criticism there is, realizes that that's what you have to do, and goes on with his life, right?
No. Oh. Twitter's refusal to dox a cow stymies a Republican's $250 million lawsuit. All right, first up, what sort of politician figures that a cow, like two parody accounts doing that is going to cost him $250 million? How has he been damaged? $250 million. Public servants don't make any money, right?
Well, see, that's the best part of it, because part of his lawsuit was they were damaging his career by making it so that he didn't get reappointed. I don't think it's an elected position, right? I think it's appointed. Anyway, he didn't think he was going to get the job back because of the embarrassment from these Twitter accounts. He got the job again. So he's going ahead with this lawsuit, but the main argument is a moot point now.
$250 million.
A moot point.
There's the title.
We're going to forget that, though. We always forget. We think of a clever title and don't say it.
So, yeah. Twitter, to their credit, said we're not going to...
This is clearly a parody account and you are a public figure. No.
And they said that... So the judge requested / ordered Twitter to give the identity, but Twitter said, show me a law that says we have to do this. And there isn't one. So if you don't like a politician, I would suggest that you create parody accounts based on animals.
It apparently really drives him insane.
Can you imagine what a piece of garbage this man is, who is running one of our most powerful institutions?
That he expects to make $250 million, and that these Twitter accounts will cost him $250 million.
I don't think it's about the money. I think it's punitive. Like, he wants to know who they are, and he wants to punish them for ever questioning it. It's that whole Trump thing, where it's like, how dare you? Do you know who I am?
Ugh.
So.
That's terrible. I think we have parody accounts right now that are just, no.
What, someone made a parody account of you?
Well, no, I mean just the stuff that we, the posts on the forum and all this kind of stuff. It's fun stuff.
All right. 45 minutes. That was
Very long.
perfectly timed. Some people say 30 is too little.
Yeah.
Some people say an hour is too long.
Yeah.
This is Goldilocks.
What do we got next time?
Next time's going to be weird. It's going to be business and I think robot.
Oh, okay.
It's weird to get robot in the middle, but security was a little long this week.
Neat.
Ugh.